Are you going to promise Australians tax cuts in the campaign?
We've been very clear that we want a simpler, fairer tax system. We want to reduce taxes wherever possible, but we'll be dictated to by how much money is left in the bank. We're not going to act in an irresponsible way. The Liberal Party, the coalition, will always manage the economy more effectively than Labor, and we do that by spending in a reasonable, responsible, pragmatic way, and if we can afford tax cuts, then they'll be delivered.
Because originally you did indicate you wanted to reinstate closer to the stage three, the original stage 3 package. In an ideal world, in terms of the budget, would you want to do that?
Well, it's an important point to make, because before stage 3 there was stage 1 and 2, and they were delivered by a coalition government. Stage 3 was legislated to be implemented, and the government rejected that. So I want tax cuts across the board because I want to try and provide incentive, and I fundamentally believe that people at the moment are working a second and third job, not because they enjoy the extra hours away from their family, but because they can't afford to pay their school fees or their health insurance or their grocery bill. People are hurting, and I want an environment where they can afford to live again, and Anthony Albanese is promising an environment where the cost of living pressures are going to continue.
Could you pay for them with public service cuts or freezes or something of that nature that you've sort of alluded to?
Well, the government, the Albanese government is following the Allen government and following the Miles and Palaszczuk governments in relation to increasing dramatically the numbers of public servants. That's what's happening here because it pleases the Public Service Union, not because it's good for service delivery. So we've said that we want to protect and preserve the frontline positions, but the back office positions, which always balloon under a Labor Party here in Canberra, we should be looking to reduce those. And the government...
Could that be used for tax cuts?
Well, it could be used for paying off debt. It can be used to reduce inflationary pressure in the economy. There are different uses for it, and we would weigh all of that up, and we'll be very honest about where we see those priorities.
You and the Prime Minister have both spoken about the prospect of achieving a majority government win. But it's far more likely, isn't it, that you could win something like 70 or 71 seats and have to rely on confidence and supply from the independents. Would you be up for that?
Well, I've said clearly before, and again, leaders can say before elections that they won't talk to those on the crossbench. The reality is that there is no serious commentator, I'm not aware of one, in the country at the moment who says that Labor can form a majority government. I think it's at $15 on Sportsbet. So it's just not happening. And when the Prime Minister says that he can form a majority government, people know that he's not telling the truth. When people say that he won't do a deal with the Greens, people know he's not telling the truth because the Greens will never do a deal with us. We will never do a deal with the Greens, particularly given now that we know they're a racist, anti-Semitic party, and yet the Prime Minister will jump into bed with Adam Bandt and do a political deal, no question about that. And the Green Teals will only ever support a Labor government. So I think we need to be honest about the fact that if you vote for Monique Ryan, if you vote for Zoe Daniel, if you vote for Kate Chaney, you're voting for Anthony Albanese and a minority government with the Greens. It would be a disaster for
But
WA.
if you won 71?
We'll talk with the crossbench, but I can promise you that it's clear from their voting pattern. Kate Chaney, Zoe Daniel, Monique Ryan, 80% of the time they support the Greens
So they're never coming your way?
They will never come our way. And let's be honest, if they're
Nevertheless, there might be 4 or so who might come your way if you got to 72.
Well, it would be unusual that if we were able to achieve 72 and we were a number of seats ahead of the Labor Party, that there wouldn't be a guarantee of supply and confidence from the crossbench. But some of them will only ever support the Labor Party, and I think if they're into transparency and honesty, they should be transparent and honest with the public before the election about if you vote for Kate Chaney, are you going to get Anthony Albanese or will she support a coalition government in a minority situation?
You spent a lot of the last few years attacking the Chinese government. Now you're saying your government would have a better relationship with China than this one in an economic sense. It's got to be about votes in seats dominated by Chinese Australians.
No, I think it's about openness, and I've spoken to the ambassador about this, about more trading opportunities with us. I think as John Howard would point out to China has a different leadership today than it did during his period as Prime Ministership. So we have to deal with the scenario before us. And I do believe in free trade. I was part of a government that negotiated the free trade agreement with China. But we need to be honest, as the Prime Minister has been, at least in private, talking about this being a very precarious period. And we need to make sure that we can work with China, have mutual respect, build the trading relationship, and also celebrate an amazing Chinese diaspora community in our country.
So what would you say to Chinese Australians who are thinking twice about voting for you?
Well, I'd say to them that we are the better party for their family, for their community and for their country. And if people in small business in Chinese communities want certainty, if they want to educate their kids in a school where kids aren't being indoctrinated on every woke policy that is the want of the Labor Party, then vote for the local Liberal or National Party member. If you want a thriving economy where you can afford, or your kids can afford to buy a house, vote for the coalition. There is nothing in common with the Chinese community here, which is an aspirational community, and the Labor Party. The Labor Party offers nothing to the Chinese community or the Indian community or other communities. They're aspirational communities. They want to get ahead. They want to build their wealth. They want to educate their kids, and the coalition is the party for them.